Mysterious interference from an electronic device during private commission discussions are now being reviewed. Local theater productions brought home titles from the Kelli O'Hara Awards, and Ardmore is gearing up for Juneteenth. These stories and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for downloading episode 66 of This Week in Ardmore, a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. Let's catch up on what I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of June 5th. The city is reviewing what happened back on Monday evening after mysterious radio emissions from a wireless battery charger raised questions about possible surveillance. Monday's regular meeting of the Ardmore City Commission was marked by a bizarre incident that had multiple sweeps of the commission chambers to determine if an executive session was being surveilled. Commissioner Buddy Simon has said that the wireless battery charger he used with his phone that evening was suspected of recording or transmitting during closed-door discussions regarding bargaining agreements with police and fire unions. Simon refused to take possession of that battery when the city manager tried to return it to him after Monday's meeting. The city's IT director told me on Thursday that 2 scans of the room identified the battery because of mysterious radio emissions, but City Information Officer Rob Newell could not conclude whether anything was actually being recorded or transmitted. Several questions were emailed to city leadership this week before the city released a statement saying that a review of that Monday incident is underway with legal counsel to determine if any wrongdoing occurred. The Ardmore City Commission did not take any action on those bargaining agreements this week, but they did take several other actions. One of 2 proposed rezonings was actually removed from Monday's regular meeting agenda after the Planning Commission last week recommended rejecting that proposal. A second rezoning of a portion of South Commerce Street was approved in a developer's efforts to introduce a sports training facility on the property. City commissioners on Monday also approved a 2-year contract extension with Flock Safety for fixed license plate readers across town. That $123,000 contract was approved as part of the City Commission's consent agenda after a missed attempt by Commissioner Buddy Simon to move that item further down the agenda for commissioner discussion. After the meeting, Simon said that he's still learning the protocols of commission meetings. Ardmore City Manager Kevin Boatwright has announced his retirement later this summer. A Friday announcement from City Hall said that the City Commission will appoint an interim city manager once Boatwright retires, and then they'll begin the search for his replacement. Boatwright was first hired by the city back in May of 1999 as the Parks and Recreation Director before he was appointed as an assistant city manager back in 2014. He then took over the top job back in 2021 and has spent more than 27 years working with the city. Friday's announcement said that Assistant City Managers Sean Guerin and Kevin Norris will be working closely with Boatwright for the next 90 days before his retirement goes into effect. Plainview High School's production of Big Fish earned one of the top prizes at the Kelli O'Hara Awards in Oklahoma City late last week. Along with the theater production earning the Division 4A award, local students from Plainview, Ardmore, and Dixon also earned Spotlight Awards at that annual ceremony for high school theater. An Ardmore man and his award-winning barbecue will head to Tennessee later this year for a world-class barbecue competition. A.J. George and his Okie Folks Barbecue qualified for the Jack Daniel's Barbecue Invitational after he won a competition at the Ardmore Elks Lodge last month. George has won at least 7 contests in the current barbecue calendar year to qualify. Last year's winners of the Jack Daniel's Barbecue Invitational won a $25,000 prize. The 2026 Jack Daniel's Barbecue Invitational begins coming up on October 9th in Lynchburg, Tennessee. Out in the printed newsletter this weekend is a story from Oklahoma Watch about the state Supreme Court hearing challenges to efforts that want to eliminate some property taxes in the state. The Oklahoma Supreme Court on Tuesday reportedly held oral arguments challenging that initiative petition that critics say would mean deep cuts for public schools by exempting homesteads from property taxes. Arguments reportedly revolved around the idea that the initiative violates a section of the state constitution that gives voters the right to support taxes for certain government services. In the Junction this week, I'll be speaking with John Cradle Jr. from the East Ardmore Revitalization. That group is holding a Juneteenth karaoke night in downtown Ardmore later this month. That's actually one of two celebrations happening locally for Juneteenth. John and I will talk about the Juneteenth holiday, that Juneteenth karaoke night, and what East Ardmore revitalization means to that group's director. Up on the website this weekend and in our printed newsletter is a column from Ardmore Leader co-owner Kim Benedict and some of her thoughts about upcoming primary elections on June 16th. She reminds voters that not only will those closed primaries decide 3 local elections, but that all voters, regardless of their political affiliation, will also be able to decide the fate of Oklahoma's minimum wage. You can read this week's column, along with previous editorials and letters to the editor, over on the opinion section of our website, ardmoreleader.com. Make sure you're following us on social media. We also have copies of all of those local ballots available on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ArdmoreLeader. Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele will be wrapping up the news with his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary to talk about the fallout from Friday's jobs report and who is leading the markets as tech slows down slightly. And make sure you stick around to the end of each episode of This Week in Ardmore because the podcast wraps up with the schedule. I'll have details about upcoming public meetings next week. I've got some details about that upcoming candidate forum, and I've got some information for some Ardmore young professionals. With that said, that's the headlines. Now let's catch up on what happened this week in Ardmore for the week of June 5th, 2026. City officials are looking into an incident from Monday evening that has left one city commissioner feeling like he needs to be vindicated of wrongdoing. Commissioner Buddy Simon has said that the wireless battery charger he brought with him to the regular city commission meeting this week was simply to charge his phone battery. But unidentified radio signals coming from that device have left some wondering if it was for surveillance. Near the end of Monday's public meeting, commissioners voted to convene a closed-door meeting known as an executive session to discuss details about potential bargaining agreements with police and fire unions. That closed-door meeting was interrupted by scans for electronic devices that may have been recording or transmitting. Immediately after that meeting on Monday, Commissioner Buddy Simon and City Manager Kevin Boatwright were discussing the wireless battery charger that had been flagged during that initial search. Boatwright tried to return that device to Simon, but he refused to take the battery and instead insisted that the city's IT director analyze that device to prove that it was not for recording or surveillance. Now, along with 2 reporters, there were several other city officials present in this corridor during the exchange between Boatwright, Simon, and Assistant City Manager Kevin Norris. Now, Boatwright had told Simon that the city would not be analyzing his private property, but Simon continued to refuse taking back that battery, saying that he wanted to be, quote, vindicated by a thorough search of that item. Norris then insisted that Simon take the device back, which then prompted Simon to accuse Norris of disrespect for getting between him and IT Director Rob Newell. As that impasse continued in the hallway, Norris eventually took the battery and left the building. Now, on Thursday, I spoke with Rob Newell, and he told me that a simple scan for devices has happened before every executive session of the City Commission since very early in his career. The scan, using a consumer-grade app on his tablet, typically looks for items that use known radio frequencies for things like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth devices. He said that he can usually recognize the devices that are found, things like smartphones or wireless headphones and maybe other nearby device. But when I spoke with him by phone on Thursday afternoon, he told me, quote, "This time, there was a device I did not recognize," end quote. So after his initial sweep of the room with his tablet, Newell was called into the chambers again for a more precise scan. He told me that he used a personal device of his that's actually helped locate illegal radio transmissions. He used that device to better identify the type and location of these mysterious electromagnetic signals. And that second search discovered that Simon's battery was emitting some radio frequencies near 5 gigahertz. That's a radio frequency that's often used in things like new wireless routers to provide internet access through Wi-Fi. You'll also see 5 gigahertz used by some cellular devices. Now, Newell said that when he located this, he actually used several computers to try to connect to this mysterious device. He wasn't necessarily trying to make an actual connection, but rather he just wanted to keep the device busy and unable to connect to anything else. This is a tactic known as a denial of service attack. Newell said that he never really analyzed the battery in question. He did say it's possible that it was a piece of electronic that was simply creating electromagnetic noise, telling me by phone on Thursday, quote, "I do not know what that device was doing," end quote. Back on Tuesday, the city released a statement saying that the incident is being reviewed. I have asked multiple city officials what actually happened to the battery after Norris left City Hall with it on Monday evening. I've also asked if any recordings have been discovered or if anybody has even been accused of monitoring or recording that meeting. Those questions have been forwarded to City Attorney Thomas Baldwin, but were not answered by the time of this recording on Friday afternoon. This morning, Simon did tell me that he has filed a police report claiming that the battery has been stolen. Now, I have seen a lot of questions about Monday's meeting, so I actually want to take this moment to explain exactly what was happening and why. One of the biggest questions I'm seeing, especially on our social media accounts, is about that closed-door executive session. What does that mean? Aren't these meetings supposed to be open to the public? And why shouldn't they be recorded? Oklahoma has laws relating to public bodies and public meetings, and these laws are set by the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act. This set of laws is applicable to any public body in Oklahoma. We're talking about commissions, authorities, councils, trusts, really any group that is supported by public funds or any group that is overseeing public property. So this does include things like the county commission, the city commission, public school boards, and even trusts of the city, like the Ardmore Main Street Authority or the Tourism Board. Now, generally speaking, everything that these bodies do is open for public inspection. According to information from the Oklahoma Policy Institute, anytime a majority of members of a public body gather, that is a meeting, whether it's formal or informal, and that meeting is subject to Open Meetings Acts. But the big news from this week's Ardmore City Commission meeting has revolved around a closed-door meeting. How can that happen under the state's Open Meetings Act? Well, that act actually does lay out very specific exceptions to public access. These types of closed-doors meetings are legally known as an executive session, and you'll often hear closed-door meeting and executive session used interchangeably. Now, among the roughly dozen or so reasons that a public body can hold an executive session, one of them is for, quote, negotiations concerning employees and representatives of employee groups, end quote. Now, according to the agenda from Monday night's City Commission meeting, commissioners openly voted to go into this executive session. Why? To discuss collective bargaining agreements with police and fire unions, something that clearly falls into that negotiation exemption for a public body. Other reasons for an executive session can be for private talks with legal counsel about things like a pending or ongoing litigation. Discussions about specific and limited safety issues can also be privately discussed, and so can employment discussions about public officers or public employees. These public bodies, they have to be careful during these executive sessions, though. The topics that they discuss behind closed doors have to be limited to items on that agenda, and no binding agreements can be voted on behind closed doors. Minutes also have to be recorded during these executive sessions, but their content actually can be kept private under certain provisions of the state's Open Records Act. And looking at state law, there are penalties for violating the Open Meetings Act. Willful violations are considered a misdemeanor in Oklahoma, with the possibility of a $500 fine and a year in the county jail. Any accusations of a violation would be sent to the district attorney's office for consideration. And to clarify my reporting from Monday's City Commission meeting, no accusations of any wrongdoing have been made against any commissioner or any other person at Monday's meeting. An email from City Manager Kevin Boatwright on Friday indicated that the city's review of the incident is ongoing. Here in just a moment, we'll talk with John Cradle Jr. from East Ardmore Revitalization. We've got some info about Juneteenth coming up in about 2 weeks. Also got some information about how you can celebrate right here in Ardmore. But first, let's wrap up our in-depth look at news with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear about how some stocks of local interest are closing out the work week, and we'll hear his Edward Jones market snapshot commentary from Friday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report. Stocks and bonds moved sharply lower today after stronger than expected jobs report pushed rate expectations and bond yields higher. Technology weakness from the prior session carried over, with the Nasdaq 100 falling 4% and the semiconductor index declining nearly 9%. Overseas, South Korea's equity index, which has doubled this year and includes Samsung as a major constituent, closed down 5.5%. Defense areas of the market held up better, with consumer staples and other defensive sectors finishing higher and providing a partial offset to tech-led weakness. The Dow was more resilient, posting a modest weekly loss, while the S&P 500 historic 9-week winning streak came to an end. Elsewhere, oil prices fell 3% on the day, while the 10-year Treasury yield rose to 4.54%. The U.S. economy added 172,000 jobs in May, well above expectations of 90,000, while the unemployment rate held steady at 4.3%. Revisions to the prior 2 months were also positive, adding a combined 93,000 jobs. Job gains were broad-based, led by leisure and hospitality and healthcare. Taken together, today's report helps reinforce other indicators suggesting that the labor market has strengthened this year after a weak 2025. While this acceleration is positive for the economy, it also makes less of a case for the Fed to cut interest rates. Markets reacted accordingly, with stocks extending their pullback and bond yields moving higher as investors increasingly price in the possibility of one additional Fed rate hike by year-end. Encouragingly, there's still no evidence of a wage price spiral. Average hourly earnings rose 3.4%, in line with expectations and down from the prior month's 3.6% pace. In our view, the Fed is likely to remove its easing bias at its meeting in 2 weeks, while maintaining a patient stance as it assesses whether inflation peaks this quarter before responding to any energy-driven price pressures. After a strong multi-week run in the technology sector, led by AI-related companies, investors have turned more cautious over the past 2 days. The semiconductor index, which had rallied roughly 50% since April, is now pulling back after Broadcom's chip sales outlook fell short of elevated expectations, triggering profit-taking in the U.S. and global markets. Encouragingly, as tech takes a breather to digest recent gains, other sectors have begun to lead, resulting in broader market participation. Before today's drop, both the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the equal-weight S&P 500 reached fresh highs, reflecting this shift. We view this rotation as a healthy development that supports the durability of the current bull market. We expect this trend to continue in the near term, particularly if progress is made towards reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which could help ease pressures on oil prices and bond yields. Today, U.S. equities closed lower. The Dow closed down 694 points, or 1.35%, at 50,868. The Nasdaq closed down 1,122 points, or 4.18%, at 25,709. The S&P 500 closed down 200 points, or 2.64%, at 7,384. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.54%, higher by 0.07 percentage points. In stocks of local interest on Friday, Walmart was up $1.14 to $118.88 a share. Dollar General was up 18 cents to $103.70 a share. Dollar Tree was down 47 cents to $108.80 a share. Albertsons was up 48 cents to $16.36 a share. OG&E was up 83 cents to $47.80 a share. ExxonMobil was down $2.12 to $149.92 a share. Devon was down $1.71 to $44.28 a share. One Oak was down 70 cents to $88.25 a share. And lastly, O'Reilly's was up $1.93 to $90.33 a share. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was down $2.66 or 2.86% at $90.40 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was down $158.10 or 3.51% to $4,346.90 an ounce. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC. Serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you'd like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Hey, does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every single episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to give listeners an idea of a few things happening around town. Email me your event details, connect@ardmoreleader.com, or give me a call, 319-9688, and tell me all about it. You can also text that number with event details, news tips, or even some photos you want to share with the community. Call or text 580-319-9688, and let's advance local news together. Thanks for stopping by The Junction. We're trying to make connections between Ardmorites. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. And back in January of 1863, right in the middle of the U.S. Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which ended the horrific practice of slavery that dehumanized black people on this continent for generations. But while that move was supposed to free those men and women from bondage, the politics of Texas at the time meant that slavery continued there for over 2 years. But finally, on June 19th, 1865, full 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, federal troops landed in Galveston to inform those residents there that slavery was over. And while people have been celebrating June 19th every year since, it was only declared a federal holiday back in 2021. But one place that Juneteenth has been celebrated even before it was a federal holiday was right here in Ardmore. And the city is marking another Juneteenth anniversary later this month with 2 separate events. Here to talk about one of them is John Cradle Jr. from East Ardmore Revitalization to talk about their Juneteenth celebration coming up on June 19th. So, John, thanks for joining us in The Junction.
Oh, thank you for having me, Michael.
So I want to talk a little bit about East Ardmore Revitalization. You've got this Harlem Nights event coming up in downtown Ardmore on June 19th. Mm-hmm. But before we get to the kind of the details of that, I just kind of want to ask a little bit about what Juneteenth means for you and your family. I'm a middle-aged white guy with a podcast, so it hits me a little bit differently than I'm sure it hits you. Mm-hmm. So what does Juneteenth mean for you?
So this is going to come maybe as a surprise to you. So I moved here in Ardmore. It's going to be 11 years now. Came in 2015. In September, it'll mark 11 years. Before that time, my family, so we lived on the East Coast in New York. Before that time, we hadn't, I was aware of June 19th, Juneteenth, but didn't celebrate Juneteenth. And then even though I was aware of it, I didn't really know the full history of it because it wasn't taught in the schools. Because it wasn't taught in the schools, it wasn't spread in our community. Unfortunately, I grew up in the church, and unfortunately, and as a pastor, I'll take the ownership. Black church pastors did not do a great job as pushing the history out in our churches as well. That's different now, mm-hmm. But back then they didn't do a great job in pushing out. So I didn't really understand the entire history, heard of it, never understood the entire history actually until I got here.
Oh, wow.
And I spoke to my sister about it, who said it was the same way for her because she came to Oklahoma years before we did. She said, she told me, well, you have to understand. Those who live in the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, here, here also Texas, because of Galveston, which you just read the history, they kind of know the history a little bit more than those who are up north. And I felt very embarrassed about it, but I'm really transparent about it because I am an educator retired educator, but once educator, always one. I am an educator, and I felt the way that I did not really know the full depths of it. So when we got here, we began to celebrate it. We began to go on events, and we teach our children, so this wouldn't repeat itself, teach our children about Juneteenth. And they said that, well, we never heard about this in history class there or even here. But that being said, it was here. It was in the community of Ardmore, the east side of Ardmore, when I was told that they were having a gathering at Whittington Park. Okay. And I said, what's that for? And this is my first year here. Well, what's that for? He said, well, it's for Juneteenth. I said, oh yeah, I heard of Juneteenth. And it was somebody there, I forgot who it was, spoke about it. And then I hit the books after that. And I hit the internet, I learned about it, and I said, you got to be kidding that I did not put more emphasis on this. So I like to be fully transparent to say that now it's a huge deal to us, and it's a time that we celebrate. And even I, as commissioner, when I came on commission, one of the first things I did was spoke to the city manager how I and express how much I really felt the importance of city employees having the day off as a holiday for Juneteenth. That actually started after I had the conversation with the city manager.
Okay, so that's actually been a fairly new development here at Ardmore.
That's a new development also. So I guess I'm trying to make up for lost time when I should have known, more. So, but now, it's a huge deal to us. It's a time we go back and revisit history. It's a time we go back and pray for the future, and it's a time we take the time to talk to a younger person about Juneteenth that may not know the full history of what's going on, may have heard it and just kind of brushed it off like I did as an adult. We want them to know at a younger age so they can pass it on and it continues.
Have you noticed the Ardmore? Do you feel that Ardmore is aware of what Juneteenth is? Does Ardmore really celebrate, or is it something that you're trying to build and grow over the years?
I don't think Ardmore as a whole really has grasped and understand Juneteenth. The Black community here in Ardmore, I believe, I want to say high 90% knows Juneteenth, will come celebrate Juneteenth. If you've ever been to, now it's not at Whittington Park. I don't want to get ahead of you. One of the celebrations is not at Whittington Park this year. They've gone back to a historical thing that we did in the East Coast and everything, the Block Party thing, which I'm excited about. I think that's a good thing. The Black community knows why it's been attended for years and years by the Black community and some of the white community and some of the Native American as well as Mexican, Hispanic community. But I would not say, I can't put a percentage on it. I think there's still a lot. It's still a lot to learn. I think it's still a lot for Ardmore as a whole. It's for us to get the word out about it. So that would be a no. That it's not a known across Ardmore.
Sure. And honestly, too, this is at least in my experience, Juneteenth. As I was learning about it, again, I was well into my adult years before I really started learning about the history of it as well. But I really started realizing that it's not necessarily just Black history, that it is part of American history. And no matter what anybody's background is, they have reason to celebrate it as an American.
That's right. Juneteenth is not just Black history. Martin Luther King, MLK Day is definitely not just a Black, quote unquote, I'm air quotes, Black holiday. Right. It is for us all, because it was all about bringing us all together, unifying. That's what Dr. King was about. So I think just for people to push it aside, to say, oh, that's just for the Black community, which it's almost as if it's doing the opposite, achieving the opposite of what it's supposed to, of bringing us all together. Because slavery divided us, but when slavery ended, it was supposed to unify us and bring equity and equality to us.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of how Ardmore is going to be marking it, East Ardmore Revitalization in particular. You've got the Harlem Nights Karaoke Night coming up on June 19th. How did this whole idea of wanting to do a kind of a karaoke night, how did this whole process come together, and why is East Ardmore Revitalization doing it? So
I started East Ardmore Revitalization in 2022, and before that, I was doing everything on my own. All the programs, running the committee work, different things like that. And I had a working board, but they weren't taking leads. Then as we began to grow, and we're still growing, board members begin to take the lead on some of the programs. And so Jemiah Baker has taken the lead. She is the team leader for Harlem Nights Karaoke Night on Juneteenth, June 19th, this month. And she she came up with the karaoke when I was just doing it. She said, well, why don't we have, I started out just by having music and dinner and speaking about, and having somebody get up to speak about the history of Juneteenth. That was it. That's all it was. And I did that for 2 straight years. The first year, it was just all about how I put it out there. We did gospel music. The second year, it was, again, same thing, all about how I did it. But that's when the karaoke was introduced. And she said, well, instead, I had a problem getting a DJ at the time. She said, well, why don't we get this DJ? He does karaoke. I said, karaoke. And she said, and Jemiah said, we should do like karaoke in it. So it was really her idea. Okay. One of our board members and team leader now of this event. And it was great last year. It was absolutely great. And the theme was 90s, 80s and 90s? 80s, 90s hip hop.
Okay.
That was the theme last year.
Nice.
And we dressed up, big gold chains and Kangol hats and different things like that.
To Run DMC.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So that was the theme for last year. She wasn't even a team leader then. She came up with the theme. She came up with the karaoke. And this time she totally took the lead, got her own committee together. And this is going to be bigger than it was on last year. And so the whole Harlem Nights, if you have not seen this movie, it is absolutely hilarious. It brings you to historic Harlem back in the roaring 20s with 1920s. And it features not just three the top legendary black comedians, but the 3 of the top legendary comedians, period, of all time. And that is none other than Red Fox, Richard Pryor, and Eddie Murphy. Not to mention so many others that's in this movie. If you have not seen it, go on, I don't know, Netflix, Hulu, I don't know what it's playing on, but I'm sure streaming somewhere. You will laugh to no end. It is absolutely funny. But not only that, the style of dress we are going to mirror for this event. So we'll be wearing the suits, the hats, the ladies who been the big dresses, different things like that. So the theme will be will show in our attire, pretty much. We're not gonna have, because the karaoke DJ asked me. He said, "Now, do you want that music? That music?" I said, "Oh no, we're not doing that all night." I said, "You can play it. You can play 1 or 2 known songs, maybe by Ella Fitzgerald or somebody from that time. You could do 1 or 2, or throw one in every once in a while. But no, we're not gonna do that all night. So it won't be in the music. It will be in the food, because back then, and even the Harlem Nights movie, it was this this restaurant that was known in Harlem that the Echo called Sugar Ray's.
Yeah.
And they served the best soul food. And that's where we are going to have soul food. And that's been a theme since we started. When we had gospel, when we had the hip hop, so the soul food has been a theme, because that is the theme of the whole Juneteenth as well, soul food. So between the food and the dress, and we're doing, I think they're doing competitions, best dress. That's to the theme, with the theme. I think we're doing silent auctions. It's going to be a lot of fun things going on.
Now, this is not only to mark Juneteenth, but this is also going to be helping East Ardmore revitalization with some of your projects. What are some of those projects that EAR works on?
So all tickets, the money that you spend on tickets is $25 a ticket. I think I got that right. Yeah, and it's going. All funds go directly to East Ardmore Revitalization for efforts of revitalizing the oldest part of Ardmore, which is the east side, northeast east side. The infrastructure is old. The houses are old. If you drive around in the southwest, you're going to see the newer style houses, and that does not need that much attention as the older style houses. So we have developed one of our I would say our biggest programs is called the Elderly Homeowners Assistance Program, and it benefits seniors who are ages 60 and above who own their own home, live in that home, and live either on Northeast or Southeast Ardmore. We assist them in things like roofing repair. We assist them in things like foundation, things that affect that side of the community because of the old infrastructure and fixing their home. And this is just so people that listen to your show may not know, the Northeast is the lowest income side of Ardmore, of the entire Ardmore. Southeast will come next, Northeast and Southeast. So you're talking about people who love their homes, but cannot afford to renovate their homes. The homes have been passed down from generations. They don't want to pick up. Not that they don't want. They don't even have the ability, the economic ability to pick up and say, well, I'm just going to go buy a new house over in Dornick Hills or over and this is no jab at Dornick Hills or Rockford Road, but it's just to say that everybody can't afford that. So we help them stay in their own homes and help them to make their homes look good. We also help to prevent homelessness and displacement in seniors because we had a long list on the city side when I viewed the reports that Jessica Scott used to give us in the commission. I saw the long list of houses that was on the condemned list, that were dilapidated, heading towards the condemned list. And then I looked at who occupied those homes, and a large amount were seniors ages 60 and above who just did not have the means to fix the roof that needed to be fixed. So they had to choose between fixing the roof or putting food on the table. So we exist with that program to fill that gap.
Well, the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee, who Mr. Cradle's talking about, they're going to be holding their Harlem Nights Juneteenth Karaoke Night coming up on Friday, June 19th. This is going to be happening at the Murray State Event Center right here on Main Street in downtown Ardmore. Friday, June 19th from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Tickets are going to be $25, but as we heard, the funds are going to be helping East Ardmore Revitalization with some of the projects they got going around town. Before people head out, you mentioned about the theme. You mentioned there's going to be soul food, karaoke music, and the whole 1920s theme. Is there anything else that people need to know before they head out? How do they get the tickets as well?
So you can get the tickets on our website, on our social media page. Our website is earevitalize.org. earevitalize.org. There's a button there where you can get the tickets there. You can also get the tickets. Look on our social media page, East Ardmore Revitalization, the business page, because there is still the page that we started with is still out there, and sometimes people will jump on that and it's not active, and we're trying to work to get that down. But the business page, you get on that, you can get it through there electronically, or go by the HFV Wilson Community Center, ask for Miss Jemiah and tell her you need tickets, and you can get tickets there. If you want the paper ticket, you're able to get it there as well.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we have links to that on our website as well, ardmoreleader.com. You had mentioned East Ardmore Revitalization social media and HFE Wilson Community Center.
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, again, they've got this Juneteenth Harlem Nights Karaoke Night coming up at the Murray State Event Center, Friday, June 19th from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Tickets are $25. That'll include soul food and the karaoke as well. And all the proceeds for that will be benefiting the East Ardmore Revitalization projects. John Cradle Jr., thank you so much for joining us in the Junction this week, and good luck with everything coming up on Juneteenth.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Appreciate being here.
And we will make sure, stay tuned on ardmoreleader.com. We'll have some more information coming up next week about a second event coming up in downtown Ardmore to also commemorate Juneteenth, coming up on Friday, June 20th. Make sure you check out ardmoreleader.com for that. All right, here's the rundown of how to find Ardmore Leader between podcasts. We distribute newsletters across town. You can get a digital copy of that newsletter emailed to you every week as well. Check out the website, ardmoreleader.com. Scroll to the very bottom of the homepage and get signed up for that newsletter for free. You can also find us on social media. Just search Ardmore Leader on whichever platform you use and see if we're there. You can do the same with whichever music and podcast app you use. to subscribe to this and other podcasts and get notified of new Ardmore Leader podcasts every week. And if you want to post your thoughts, your ideas, maybe your art, some cool videos, visit ardmoreleader.com. You can head to the opinion section and then submit your letter to the editor there. But if you've got something else you want to send me, email soundoff@ardmoreleader.com. Send me a letter, a poem, a cartoon, a piece of art. Even record a voice note on your smartphone and have it on this podcast. Please, if you do that, keep a recording under 60 seconds though. And whatever you're sending me, make sure you include your full name in that email so you can stand behind your submission. If your group or organization has a public event coming up, let us know, and I'll see about getting it on the schedule. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, June 8th at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway in downtown Ardmore. The agenda for that meeting is available on the county's website right now, cartercountyok.us. The Plainview Public Schools Board of Education will hold their monthly meeting coming up on Monday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the District Administration Building. Among items on that agenda for the meeting includes an executive session to consider hires, as well as a patron request to address the board. The Southern Tech Board of Education will hold their regular monthly meeting coming up on Thursday, June 11th at 11:30 a.m. in the Bob Thomason Boardroom on the Southern Tech campus. The agenda for that meeting can be found next week on the school's website, sotech.edu. The Southern Oklahoma Track Club is getting ready for regional competitions, but they need some of your help raising money. Coming up on Saturday, June 6th at the Carter County Dodge, get your whip looking crisp while also helping local athletes raise money for their travels. Let them wash your car beginning at 11 a.m., and then any donation is going to be welcome. The Southern Oklahoma Track Club Car Wash Fundraiser happening tomorrow, Saturday, June 6th at 11 a.m. at Carter County Dodge. Ardmore Young Professionals is relaunching, and they're actually holding a Discover and Connect event coming up next week on Thursday, June 11th. This is going to be from 5 until 7 p.m. at The Yard, located at 410 West Main Street. You can meet the board, connect with other young professionals in the community. The relaunching of the Ardmore Young Professionals happening on Thursday, June 11th at The Yard in downtown Ardmore. You can find Ardmore Young Professionals over on Facebook to RSVP. With primary elections coming up, the Ardmore Chamber of Commerce wants to give Republican voters some info on some of the candidates in 3 local primaries. That candidate forum is happening at the Ardmore Convention Center coming up on Thursday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. Organizers have invited candidates for the Carter County Assessor's Office, the Carter County Commission Seat 3, as well as candidates for District Attorney for District 20. This Republican candidate forum is scheduled for Thursday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. at the Ardmore Convention Center. Juneteenth is just around the corner, and Ardmore is getting ready to celebrate. Coming up on Friday, June 19th, East Ardmore Revitalization will hold their Harlem Nights Juneteenth Karaoke Night at the Murray on Main Event Center. Tickets for that are $25. Proceeds will go to the East Ardmore Revitalization. And for Juneteenth, an outdoor block party's coming up. That's coming up on Saturday, June 20th on East Main Street. That's going to be happening from 2 p.m. until 10 p.m. Organizers are still accepting vendor applications. Find more information on our social media page, facebook.com/Ardmore Leader. And with that, I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks for listening to episode 66 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.